That real talk only. This show ain't for the fake and the phony. Nah, we speaking it boldly. I'll give it the way that God told me. Yeah, I follow his lead. Ain't what they want, but I give what they need. Not wanna compromise, never concede. Cause I need the truth like the air that I breathe. My recommendation, if you wanna change generations, hit play, let's talk about keeping it real. We kidded in these conversations, yeah.
Welcome to Candid Conversations, where we talk about the real, the hard, and the hard to understand. I'm your host, Aaron Cooley, and you are listening slash watching the very first episode. That's what we're gonna call it. It's the pilot. Really, the introduction is really what it is. And I just wanted to hop on here and kind of talk about the why behind this podcast or this idea. And it really just started with I wanted a place where people could just be, where they could be vulnerable, where we could just talk about any and everything. I think all of us could point to a lot of different conversations throughout all of our lives where that conversation changed something. Like school is great, work is great, learning all those things in systems is great. But I would argue that a lot of our growth happened in candid conversations, in the vulnerable places. And so I just want to create a space where you can be vulnerable, where you don't have to put on a front, you don't have to put on a facade, you don't have to be fake. And whatever that means to every person. Fake can mean one thing. It doesn't mean you're phony. It just means you're not being authentically you for different reasons. And it's hard to be that. So this is a place where hopefully people can just be themselves and we can talk about any and everything. And I do mean everything. And so though I said the hard and hard to understand and real, I want to talk about hard topics. I want to talk about things going on nowadays. And I also want to just talk about life, daily life. What's going on, how to best practices and tips and all the things. Really, this won't be something that's curated. It's not going to really have I don't know what it's going to be. I'm going to be honest with you. We out here just in testing the waters, and your boy can't swim, so we just out here learning as we go. And hope you guys are excited about the journey. If you watch one episode, if you watch all of them, if I only do one episode, if I do 100, I don't know what it's going to look like. Some episodes might be 22 minutes, some might be 4 hours. Who knows? We're just out here, but I think that it allows. I want to have a place where it's free to just have conversations. You never know how long a conversation will go or what direction it will go. And hopefully for the formatting, I want to do 2 a month right now. If more, great. We'll see how that looks, but to kind of get some kind of consistency. And really, my goal is to have people on here often. Sometimes it might be just your boy having ideas, talking about things. But yeah, that's kind of the overarching idea, and this idea of vulnerability. I want this to be a place that some of you may have heard this of honest, open, and transparent. And honest is you coming forward when someone asks you something. That's how I see honest. So if I asked you a question and you told me the truth, that's being honest. Open is you kind of just being willing to answer questions and be available in different ways. And then I would argue that transparent is like these blinds right now. Like that's what open is. Like I could open these, I could flip them down, and that's technically opening the blinds, right? People can see in kind of, but they can't get the full picture. Like overall, they get an idea, but they still can't see fully. So I would argue that being transparent is me lifting these blinds all the way up, and you seeing into my life in a very transparent way. That it's not you asking me things; it's just you being present in that moment and seeing all those things. So that's why I would argue vulnerability is, and that's why I want. Like, I don't think real transformation or real relationship happens without vulnerability. But also, vulnerability is scary. Like, it is one of the most scary, for lack of better words at the moment, fearsome things and freeing things, I would say at the same time. Because imagine someone knowing all of you and loving you, like really knowing all of you and loving you. And some of you might have a friend like that. You might have a sibling like that. You might have a parent like that, a spouse like that. However, I would I would suggest or think that a lot of us don't, um, because what does it look like to truly show someone everything? And so in the beginning, God talks about them being naked and unashamed. And that idea just sticks to me, naked and unashamed. Because nowadays, if you're naked, there's probably some shame attached to it. And not shame because of just shame's sake. Like we don't go take a shower and there's shame, but someone else seeing us is it's almost like, oh, we got to cover up because we don't know what they're going to think about us. Like no matter how in shape you think you are or aren't, you just don't know how someone's going to think about you. And so just imagine someone seeing you fully, not just physically, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Um, it's scary. It's a scary thought. Like I don't like I'm giving you free reign to judge me, to perceive me in a different way. But I would say there's nothing more freeing than being fully seen and loved. And that's what God does for us. And I just want to create a space where more people can do that, where you can open up some of yourself to different people. And this is not a platform for answers. I have not lived nearly enough life to know anything. All I do know is that I don't know anything. So that's something life has taught me, that the more I learn that I really don't know anything. And it's a good feeling to know there's so much still to learn and to grow into. And I also think I might have some perspectives and other people have perspectives to give people perspective that 1 Corinthians says we all know in part, meaning we know something in part, a small amount of something in part, meaning having conversation with someone else is how I might get a different part, a different perspective um, of what my circumstance is or what my situation is, or just an idea to think from a different perspective. I keep saying that word, but it's because it's the only word that that I think really articulates that idea of we can only see from where we see right now. And this hopefully is a place that people can talk about where they are and where they have been without judging. I think it's one of the hardest things to do, to talk about your past without judging your past, because now you don't have past understanding. You have today, you have present understanding. But it's foolishness to judge your past with today's understanding. Because if you had today's understanding, you probably wouldn't have did the things you did that way in your past. And at the same time, how do we do that well? We can look back. We can go back and say, man, this is what happened. This is why this happened. How do we move forward? Rather than, man, I wish I would have did this or did that. Obviously, we all have, if we want to call them regrets, or just like, man, I would have tweaked that, whether it was a business deal, whether we had addictions, whether relationship wise, or just like, man, I wish I would have learned that lesson sooner. It's it's hard. I want this to be a judgment free zone, in the sense of not judging people for who they are, but giving them grace and space to be where they're going. And I sorry, let me rephrase that. Not judging people for where they were, but giving them space and grace for where they are and where they're going. It's hard to grow when someone keeps putting you in the same box. Jesus went back to his hometown, and they put him in a box. Like, huh? Oh, you the carpenter's son. No, we know you. And it says he could not perform miracles there because he was put in a box. And so hopefully it's a place where people aren't put in boxes. They're allowed to speak their mind, speak whatever they want to talk about. I don't know what the conversations will be about. But I just feel like we need more spaces where people can be vulnerable. And so I plan on starting it. I think someone has to start vulnerability for it to happen. And so I'm probably going to share a lot of things, and I'm not going to lie, that has made me nervous. Just because it's never easy putting yourself out there, or putting your past out there, or talking about things that um, without a full picture, it's easy for people to look through the blinds and judge. And even with this all the way lifted up and seeing it and trying to explain it as the best that I can, or other people explaining their situation as best they can, there's still glass there, and glass still distorts. Glass still, there's still something there that people aren't always going to see what you see. They're not always going to understand. And so rather than trying to make a platform for people to fully understand one another, just want a place where people can be fully present. That oftentimes I'm not going to agree with other people, and they're not going to agree with me, and that's okay. That we can disagree and still be in fellowship. We still can be in relationship, and what that looks like and how to do it well. And don't know. It will be different for every situation, but it is. I'm super excited. I'm super excited for it. A lot of nervous, curious of what conversation will be. Like I said, some episodes might be 20 minutes, some might be 2 hours. Who knows? Um, but just wanted to hop on here and talk about those things. Like, what does it look like to be fully seen and fully known? And I can't say fully loved because only God fully loves us. Mainly because he's the only one that fully knows us. But I would say for where we know ourselves right now, sharing ourselves now, being loved at that capacity. And like I said, it's frightening. It's frightening. It's also exciting. So hopefully this is a place where we cherish vulnerability, where it's a gift to others. Tim Ross always says vulnerability is his superpower, and it is a superpower because it vulnerability opens people up. It allows access um, to people to be authentic, to be real, to be true. So wherever they are, like you don't have to come here a certain way. You don't have to dress a certain way. You won't have to look a certain way, and that will be abundantly clear probably quickly because your boy probably gonna be on here snacking sometimes in PJs. Who knows? Because it's not about having a certain look or certain aesthetic. As you can tell, I still don't know what I'm doing in here. So yeah, y'all hopefully be patient with me. I don't know technology. I was super like, man, I don't know how to start a podcast. I don't know how to work no technology. So that's something I'm still in the works of learning right now. So if the quality kind of sucks on some of them or volume or all the different things, let me know. If you know something, help a brother out. But hopefully you're patient with me because I'm starting. I'm learning to start where I am, and excellence is not doing the best from what you've seen. It's not looking like, oh, that's the best. I need to do that. Excellence is doing the best you can with what you have right now, the knowledge you have right now, the capability you have right now, the resources you have, and so that's what we're trying. And this is what we got so far. So super excited, and yeah, man, I'm ready to get into it, to get into different topics. And so feel free to reach out if there's something you want to talk about or have questions about that. I don't plan on curating much conversation. We'll probably always have a starting topic and then see where the conversation goes from there. But for real, if they're like, what I want to know what people are thinking about, what's on your mind, what concerns you, and there's no topic off limits. And I'm not going to talk a lot about topics I don't have much understanding of. Politics is probably up there for me. Not saying I'll never talk about them, but I really don't get politics. I don't get all the jargon and the back and forth, and I've never been interested in it that much. So it's probably something I won't talk often about. And then other things I might not. I will be honest say, hey, I don't know everything about this. I have some understanding. I have a perspective. We all have perspectives about everything. And so, like I said, this isn't about giving answers, but just, hey, this is my thoughts on this. What are your thoughts? Or this is my understanding. And I'm hoping that with fresh perspectives, new ideas, someone might get answers. So if this podcast is for one person, thousands of people, who knows? But hopefully it's a space where people can learn, they can grow, they can get some understanding and just have conversation. And it's called candid conversations because we have conversations every day. We have conversations with ourselves, we have conversations with other people, we have conversations with God, coworkers, family, friends, the barista. We communicate, right? We have conversations, but I would argue that a conversation isn't true communication unless it's candid. And candid is the who, what, where, when, why, how. Without those things, you can have a conversation without ever really saying anything. And so hopefully this is a place where you can just speak, speak freely, speak your mind, and be vulnerable. So I don't know what that looks like. I'm expecting some fire too. I'm here for all the smoke, and not that I'm trying to create some, but it's gonna be hard topics. Sometimes it's gonna be what they call them, hot I guess hot topics what they call it, but like, yeah, topics that people are talking about nowadays, or it's just sensitive. And so whether that's with sexuality, or actually it'll be probably a decent amount on sexuality because there seems to be a lot of that going on, of just people having different opinions and thoughts and ideas about that. And so I want people with different backgrounds than me. I want people who sometimes think they're liking me in some ways, and people who have a completely different background or circumstances, because I want to get their perspective too. And I want to offer a place where we can learn from each other. And I think before you ever have a place of fixing or healing or reconciliation, there first has to be a platform where you can even just hear one another. Like we're so big on trying to find solutions all the time, but sometimes the solution is simply hearing one another and not always fully understanding, but saying, I hear you. That's it. Sometimes that's it. There's no, sometimes I'm going to hear someone or they're going to hear me and they're still like, "No, I don't agree at all, but I hear you." And that alone is freeing. So that would be, I guess, episode one tip or word of wisdom. Do you hear someone? Are you listening? There's a difference between listening and hearing, at least in my opinion. I- If I'm listening, I can listen to anything. I can listen to music. I can listen to what's on the TV. Like it's hold up. What? No, sorry. I can hear anything. They're between those two. Are you hearing something? I can hear the TV. And I can hear music. Like I can hear traffic sounds going on. There's always noise going on. And when you're sitting in the still quiet, ooh, ooh, that's good, Holy Spirit. There's so many different things of well, God says He was in the quiet, that the small still whisper, and I think part of it is you have to be intentional to hear that. You can't just be like if you're just listening. There's too much going on. There's too many different voices, social media, family, friends, coworkers, your own thoughts. To hear is to be just there. It happens without you having to do anything. Listening requires intentionality, and so I think a lot of us are hearing one another. Like we hear words, we know English words, we know the words coming out of their mouths, but we're not listening to them. We're not listening to their heart. We're not listening to um, what they're trying to convey. The only way they might know how to convey it, and tone matters. It matters, and sometimes you got to be able to look past the tone and listen, which requires some humility and being forgiving, which is neither of those things are easy. But hopefully, this is a place that we can do that. Um, it doesn't just because someone's intense or passionate or these buzzwords we like to use, or what people might perceive as angry, that you still listen. And not saying I do a perfect job of that. But I want to. I want to be good at listening and listening well. And yeah, hopefully this is a place that we all can grow and work on that, and let people have different perspectives, ideas, opinions, thoughts, yeah, ideas of just what do you think? What like why ask the question, what do you think about this? Or what are your thoughts or what's your perspective if we're not going to listen? Like why we I've done this. I'm not going to say anyone else. We just going to talk about Cooley today. I've asked questions, and before they answer, I've formulated my response to regardless of what they're saying. I have a response because really I wanted them to ask me the question so I could answer it. And so that's something I'm constantly working on, and something hopefully this isn't, that we ask questions to learn, to grow, sometimes just to listen, even if we don't agree, to just actually listen. And I think Tim Ross says this often. It's easy to hate from a distance. It's easy to be misunderstood from a distance. It's hard when they're right here. It's easy to have courageous thumbs through social media and through a screen. It's hard to speak without with that lack of love when someone's face to face with you, when you can see their emotions, when you can fully hear what their body language and all the things involved. That listening, you have to be intentional with all those things. Like that's why I'm not a huge proponent of texting, because I'm a terrible texter. At least I also been told. Like I'm very just straightforward. There's not any like extraness to it. I'm just straight like, hey, so are we doing this right now? What time did you say? There's no fluff. There's no like, hey, how are you? And I never mean it rude. But then I even read back my own text like, ooh, mm, hey, I apologize if that sounded rude, because I'm just direct. because without my voice inflections, you wouldn't know. Like I'm actually in a great mood. But even voice inflections, if you don't know me, if you don't see my body language or hear me often enough, you won't know. And that all takes one, intentionality and listening, and two, time spent. And so that's another thing to understand. Like if you don't have time spent with someone, it's very hard to decide what they're meaning, if that makes sense. Like it's hard for me to say, I know exactly what you mean because I don't. I don't. First off, I don't have enough time spent with you to decide what you meant by that. So I got to ask. So ask questions, ask follow up questions, and something I'm a big proponent of and learning to do is saying, so I hear that you're saying when I'm not sure, or even if I think I'm sure sometimes, because I want to make sure I'm listening well first. Whether I disagree or agree, I want to make sure I'm listening first and that that person's being heard. And that is for any of you that have had this feeling of someone actually listening to you. Oh, it feels so good. It feels, you don't care if they think the complete opposite. Them hearing you, them listening intentionally is freeing right in itself. So hopefully this is a place that people can be vulnerable, that we can listen well, that we can hopefully learn something new, get different ideas and understandings, and from there see what happens. Hopefully there's some fresh revelations for people, for all of us, and hopefully the Holy Spirit be doing what the Holy Spirit doing through conversation, of just allowing fellowship to take place, because I think f- a lot of people have forsaken fellowship for a bunch of different reasons. I won't even say because it's just, oh, I don't need no one. But I would argue that it's a lot of the grind that people are on. We're all on the grind, and we got to get this and get the money and go do this and take care of our families. And I'm not saying any of these things are wrong. It's just taking priority over things that really are important, of even spending time with one another and making time for one another. So this isn't just a place for people to tune into another podcast, but really just also for me, just have conversation with some friends that it's hard to connect with sometimes, because we're both so busy, or man, this happened or this came up. And part of listening intentionally means setting time aside intentionally, of just like, hey, you're worth this time. And there's, people are worth the time. You can't get time back. God can always make time work for you, but there is no buying time. You can't buy more time. You can't manifest more time. And so that's something I've even talked with a lot of friends about, of just like, hey man, we got to be more intentional about talking, because I am an introvert. That's another reason I was like podcasting. I don't really want to be doing that. I'm cool, but like I cannot talk to friends for some months and be fine. One of my closest friends, we talk once every 3 months or so, maybe even longer. And we live in the same state, maybe 10 minutes away from each other. And that's just how our friendship was. But recently we've been saying, hey, that works. Like, and we're not really in relationship without time spent. And so just being intentional about spending time with one another and having candid conversations. Probably going to say that a lot. Candid, being candid is just, I actually like the word blunt. I know it comes off harsh, or like, man, you don't want to be blunt with people. Like you want to speak the truth with love, and I 100% agree. You want to speak the truth with love. Truth with no love is mean, and love with no truth is holds no power. It's not changing anything. It's not helping anyone. So I 100% agree. You need both. And in this culture, in this climate, I would lean towards more people are speaking with a perceived love and holding back truth, because nowadays in this cancel culture, you can't correct someone. If I'm correcting you, then I just condemn all of you. If I'm saying this action I don't agree with, or this thing you're participating in I don't agree with, that means I just cancel. I condemn all of you. Or it's just, hey, I have to condone everything, and neither of those are right. I would, so blunt. I like blunt, candid. Be blunt about what the truth is, and you can do it in love. You can do it with gentleness and kindness, but there has to be truth. There has to be um, truth spoken, and my perspective. If I'm in a relationship with you, if I'm saying I care about you and I really care about you, it's not care if I let you do something that I don't agree with or I think is harming you or harming others because I don't want to hurt your feelings. That don't add up. Like please don't be my friend or in relationship with me whatsoever if you don't want to hurt my feelings, so you just let me do some nonsense. Please don't. Please don't get next to me. We not gonna work. Like I need people who will correct me, who will help me and not throw me under the bus, but just hey, pull me aside. Hey, maybe not that way. Maybe do it like this or say this or hey, we don't know about that participating in that. And it doesn't even have to be sin, but um it says every weight that entangles. Throw off every weight. So I think a lot of us, yes, sin is definitely still around. And I think a lot of us are just walking around with weights. And the people around us are just like, well, they're all right. They're not really doing anything wrong. Like, what's wrong with it? I hate that phrase. What's wrong with it? No, what's right with it? If there's nothing right with it, there's plenty of things that there's nothing wrong. But if there's nothing right, then why are we participating? It's a waste of time, a waste of energy, a waste of our gifts and talents, treasures. Like why do it if there's nothing right with it? And so hopefully that is what you want to start surrounding yourself with people who will correct you in love and kindness and gentleness and bluntness. Like, hey, we don't do that. I got some accountability partners that they real candid with me, or and I call my own faults. Like it's not just they. If there should be some self awareness. I'm hoping this is a place too where people get a little bit more self awareness of just, oh, okay, I need to start actually listening to the things I say. I need to start being self aware of how I interact with others, interact with myself. What am I telling myself when I'm alone? Um, and calling my own faults. That I'm a big proponent of it. I'm not going to say I do it 100% all the time, but I try to do it and do it frequently. Like I want to call my faults first, and then the accountability people around me hold me to a standard that I set for myself. Like accountability partners, accountability people aren't people that hold you accountable to their standards. It's not gonna work. And it's not someone you say, "Hey, could you just make sure I'm doing this?" That's not gonna work. If you don't have discipline, self-discipline, it's not gonna work. And so, um, yeah, a lot of different ideas in here, but it's just uh, hopefully all these things happen in some small way, big way for the people on here, for the people listening, of just being more aware, listening, being intentional, being candid and blunt. Sometimes stuff doesn't need to be oftentimes really nothing needs to be sugar coated. Sugar's not good for you anyways. And if you're just gonna throw sugar on it, it defeats the taste of something in the first place. And not that sugar's bad or wrong, but sometimes it just tastes good raw, how it is. Let it sit and let it simmer. And when you have relational equity with someone, time spent, intentional, they know you want what's best for them, you can be blunt. You can be real direct and honest, and it doesn't have to be unloving or unkind or hateful. Um, which I would is hard nowadays. It's really hard to correct people without without them feeling attacked personally. And so hopefully this is a place where you hear some hard stuff. I plan on making everyone uncomfortable. Somehow, some way, I want you uncomfortable because if you're uncomfortable, that means you're in new spaces, and new spaces means new growth. You can't always be comfortable and grow. They don't sit in the same area. They don't work. I want people to be content but not complacent. And so, yeah, I guess I do want people to grow. Yeah, there is a point. I do want people to grow. I want there to be new perspectives for you, whatever that looks like. And I don't really have no expectations of what that looks like exactly because I'm not in charge. I don't got answers. And I'll be quick to say that now. I most likely, not most likely, I will. I'm going to change my mind on some stuff. I'm going to say some stuff in conversation, and then maybe in that conversation, I'm like, you know what? Okay, actually, I think differently about that now. Or it might be a week later or the next day. Hey, I said so and so, but actually, I think differently now. And I think we got to allow space for that too. Allow people to change their mind, allowing people to say, "Hey, I was wrong about that," or "Sorry, it took me some time, but I see what you're saying," and create space for, "Hey, I hear you. I'm listening. You make a lot of good points. I don't necessarily agree with all of them, and I guess I still think the same way about it, and we're still good." Like I don't. It will be an interesting way to balance. Don't know what that will look like, but I think for things that just are opinions, let people have opinions. Then there's truth. It's not really opinions about a truth, a fact. Fact and truth are slightly different. We'll talk about that later. But gravity, you can have different opinion about gravity if you want. You are free to do so. If you jump off that bridge thinking you're gonna fly, you're not, and it will be proven true when you jump. So for truth, I'm not going to back down. I'm also not going to be aggressive or force truth upon anyone. And if they ask questions or we have conversation about things, I'm going to speak what I understand to be the truth. And I'm not going to try to change my opinion, and I'm not going to try to change them. I will speak the why behind what I believe, and why I believe it to be the truth, and that's all. So if it's things that have opinions, I love talking about stuff that there's not necessarily a right answer to. It's just, hey, what do you think about this? Or we don't even know what this looks like. Or oh, I've never thought about that. And then there's just some things that are the truth, and the truth needs to be spoken. Like people people are craving something. They're craving truth. They're craving someone to care enough to speak it, to say it to them, to not be afraid of hurting their feelings, or man, what if they don't want to talk to me anymore? I much rather hurt your feelings, like hurt them bad, and you get some freedom and some perspective, than to be friends and you keep living in misery or false false happiness. The Israelites walking. Oh, and there's gonna be a lot of Bible references. It just it's my background. It's what I believe. It's the way I walk. So you know, it's part of what I'm going to do. The Israelites were in the they were in slavery 400 years, right? Not a great situation. Getting beat, whipped, right? Not a good not a good situation. They get free. You would think, oh, freedom is obviously better. I'm free. It don't really matter. I'm free. Yet that wasn't the case. They are in the wilderness walking and they're complaining. Just every turn complaining about something. And oh, we're so hungry. Oh, you just brought us out here to die. We rather be as prisoners because at least we had food there. We had meat. Matter of fact, they said meat. They had some food. God provided food, but they wanted meat. God, we had meat. We at least it was better there. So you prefer getting beat, but you have meat. No, no. It's not that we prefer those things. It's that it's easier to deal with what's familiar, what's comfortable. It's not that getting beat is comfortable, but because it's familiar, I at least know how to handle that. I don't. Unfamiliar means I, even if it's better, it's unfamiliar. It's unknown. I don't know how to go about this, and so I'm gonna make you uncomfortable. Hopefully, and hopefully it creates opportunities to grow, to think differently, to be mad. I really don't care if you're mad with me or mad about an episode or conversation or vehemently disagree. That's okay. Like it's I still love you. Like it's no hate here. And hopefully it might not even change your opinion. I'm not here to change opinion, but it might just give you things to think about, and hopefully give me some things to think about. I'm sure I'm gonna have some of these episodes with people and I'm gonna be hot, like, oh, I don't like that, or I disagree. And I want to listen though. I can be mad and listen. I can be sad and listen. I can be in my feelings and listen. It's not an either or. And so hopefully feelings don't dictate these conversations. And all that to be said, yeah, I mean, I could probably go on talking because my mind is often connecting different thoughts and going here and running there. Um, and that's what's going to be. It's going to be a conversation. There's not going to really be a just a perfect train of thought usually. But yeah, let me know if there's topics you really want to talk about, or just like, man, I don't know a lot about this, or I do know a lot about this. I want to know what you think, or man, I have questions about this, and whether it's relationships, finances, mental, spiritual, physical, all the different things, all the O's. Yeah, ask questions. And if I don't know, or I really just like, yeah, I ain't never really thought about that. I'll try to get someone on here who has, to have conversations, to get some perspectives and understandings and candid conversations. And um, all I ask is that you let people be vulnerable. Like, give them this space to be vulnerable. I'm not here to create negativity. I'm not here to talk about people. If we talk about a situation and the shoe fits, shoe fits. I'm not calling people out, but if the shoe fits, the shoe fits. And sometimes the shoe's going to fit me. So, like I said, I want to call my own fouls as well. And yeah, that's all. Just hopefully give me grace, allow me to be vulnerable, and yeah, we'll see where we go from here. But that is it for today. I hope you guys enjoy the ride with me, and we out.